the children finding their mission in the great design. Together we're building, so they'll be living the circle of giving in their time. The circle of giving in their time.
In September 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. Overnight, the physical and mental landscape of the region changed. To rebuild after a disaster of such scale was an uphill battle, one rife with emotion and hurt that ran deep along lines of race and class. Unlike anything UUSC, the UUA, or the Gulf Coast had faced before, UUSC and the UUA set out to address the needs of those most disenfranchised by this disaster.
The water was up here, and we took the exit off of Orleans, and you could not see that it was the exit, it was a river. And they had people in garbage cans and clothes baskets and plastic things, and on plastic mattresses and all that stuff just pushed. There was bodies floating. I mean, it was one that I'll never forget. This lady, and she had a baby, was tied, hooked on her back, and they were both dead in the water. You know, I mean, it was just awful.
Our experience of working in the Gulf Coast has been transformative for our faith. It began so rapidly as the damage from Katrina became apparent, and as it became apparent that there were whole sections of the populations that were being left behind. So we began quickly and created an opportunity for Unitarian Universalists to contribute money to the Gulf Coast Relief Fund. It was so successful, most successful fundraising we have ever done. We raised almost $3.5 million, which has been distributed in the Gulf. A third of that money went to support our congregations, which were badly damaged. And 2/3 of it went to support the poorest of the poor in New Orleans and on the Gulf Coast.
All of our work at UUSC is framed through an analysis of race, class, and gender, but in particular, our relief work in disasters is framed that way. It's our experience that the dominant culture usually runs the relief agency and further marginalizes those communities that were already marginalized. So it's particularly important to find out who they are, find out who can speak for them, and bring their voices into the debate, elevate their profile, and really help them become part of the solution rather than push to the edges. Our rights and humanitarian crises work in the Gulf really focused on marginalized communities, and I think that work is something that we should all be proud of.
I have a vision of all the children finding their mission in the great design. Together we're building, so they'll be living the circle of giving in their time. The circle of giving in their time. What turns our eyes
Hurricane Katrina is what UUSC referred to as a triple disaster. Large-scale physical destruction, incompetent and miserably poor response by the U.S. government, on top of social and economic barriers to reconstruction, made the disaster unique and far-reaching.
Unbeknownst to people who have never lived here, if you actually walk through those undeveloped areas, you will see that it's all the grass that has grown over foundations of people's homes. People's lives have been destroyed. History has been put down the drain. But the real history, the real historical factors of people, we had so many African American communities living here in East Biloxi. These were people that were from the civil rights era. These were people that were from beyond the civil rights, before the civil rights. These were 100-year-old gunshot homes that were inherited to them by their fathers and grandfathers. These people had a history here in Biloxi. That's all been destroyed for them. The dream, not only did they lose all of their personal, but then They were humiliated by insurance companies. They were humiliated by our government's lack of response, not only on a federal level, but on a local level.
You know, I remember our press release, and it was called the 3 I's. It was information, inclusion, and input. And the inclusion was include us in the discussions that you're having with our neighborhoods. Take our input into your plans. And the information, make information available so it will speak to how decisions are made about the return.
After Hurricane Katrina, it became obvious quickly that we were dealing with a natural disaster, but also a human disaster and a real disaster of response to the people who are most vulnerable. So the Unitarian Universalist Association had always responded to disasters by raising money for congregations, but quickly became apparent that this was beyond anything we'd ever responded to. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee had responded to human rights disasters from natural disasters for years, and so it became really obvious that what we needed was a partnership. We needed both the information about our congregations and how they were doing, and we needed the information on how to partner with community groups and work in the bigger world on this issue. And so we started to raise money together as a joint partnership. The UU Gulf Coast Fund was for UUA and UUSC.
What makes the green grow? What turns the seasons? What is the reason the world goes round?
UUSC was just had such incredible foresight during this whole situation. And while they may not have been the foundation to put the most money into this work, I think that they were a leader in the funding community. They created a platform off of which to say, which to really encourage foundations to first to visit the area, to see for themselves, to fund more flexibly, to look out for non-traditional groups that, community groups, ad hoc community groups were coming together to fill a void in that environment, to fill a void that was left by government. But they needed resources to do the critical work that they were doing at that particular time. They understood the need to support non-traditional community groups because of this mapping project, and maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
I have a vision of all the children finding their mission in the great design. Together we're building, so they'll be living the circle of giving in their time. A circle of giving in their time.
An eye-to-eye partnership model, it seeks to see the partner as equal to us and not we above the partner. We go and we find that they are the ones in the situation. They know their problem and therefore they can define it. We seek to have an equitable relationship with the people on the ground because we know that if we don't do that, they cannot develop trust with us.
The relationship was a very unique one. It was a genuine one because they didn't have a lot of string attached. Because, when you look at grants, when you look at evaluation and the counting measure, how do you measure hope? How do you measure hope? And I think what the Unitarian Universalist Fund did, it was about help giving us hope without saying that you got to show us how we giving you hope. And so it was giving us money based on where we was at and what we said we needed to rebuild our community.